Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Wrike's instructor-led training session. Today, we're going to be talking about automations for marketing and creative teams. But as we mentioned, I don't know if you've been following this discussion in the community, in Wrike's community, we did mention that this will also be very useful for anyone who is interested in creating more automations in Wrike. So yeah, I think that we are ready to begin. And at first, let's take a look at our agenda for today. We are going to be covering just a little bit of the recent automation updates that we think are very important. And then our amazing Kim is going to be covering some of the use cases. And then if we have time in the end, we will have an open discussion as well. But as I mentioned before, please feel free to use the chat box, ask your questions or share your feedback. And we hope to have time to address some of them as well. So just an FYI that this session is going to be recorded and it will be available on the Wrike Discover website, the same place where you registered for this session. And I believe that it will be available maybe a couple of days later after today. And yeah, as I mentioned, do use the chat box. And now it's time to present our amazing instructor, Kim. She's our senior professional services consultant. And Kim, as always, a great pleasure to collaborate with you.
Absolutely. I really enjoy doing these sessions with you as well. Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you as well. I'll be your host for today's session. I'm a senior professional services consultant. I've been using Wrike since 2016. I take my experience as a former client using Wrike as a creative services department and beyond to help teams like yours get the most value as quickly as possible from Wrike. So, helping teams like yours wield Wrike with precision gets me excited for my day, and all of us here at Wrike are excited to talk to you about automations and how you can leverage them for your day-to-day activities.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim.
Right.
And before we jump into the actual use cases, I would like to just take a quick moment to say a big thank you for everyone who's been participating in our community because this session today is actually the result of our question to you, to some of you, like what would be the interesting topics for you to be covered on sessions like this. And a lot of you actually shared feedback about automation and how it would be really great to have to cover more use cases, to learn more about the automation. So in case you are not participating in our Wrike's community yet, here's the link here. You can access it on the Help Center. And thank you so much for participating. And if you are not participating yet, we're really looking forward to, talking to you there. So thank you. And another thing that we did want to mention today, which I think is super useful for the use cases that we are covering today as well, are some of the recent, and of course, this is definitely not everything that we recently released for Wrike's automation, but two things that we wanted to call out specifically today were automation templates as well as automation AI suggestions. So for automation templates, now every time you create a space level automation rule, you will have access to templates. And there are 50 plus of them. And you can just, use any of them to build your automations in Wrike. It would make it easier and, of course, faster. And then another thing that we wanted to call out is the AI suggestions for Wrike automation. What it does is it intelligently picks up on the activity in your space and then recommends rules based on it. And it has a separate AI suggestions section, and it will contain some space-specific content for your teams. So be sure to to start using those two features if you haven't tried them yet. And also, we are looking forward to hearing your feedback on those two. Okay, so I think that now we are ready to cover our first use case. And the automation that we are going to be using here is for some missing information. Sounds very interesting. Kim,
Yeah.
if you are
So
ready to take us on that journey with missing
let's,
information.
let's set the scene a little bit here before I share my screen. Um, Oftentimes, you may have a workflow set up where you have a request form in place to really standardize the work that you're receiving from across the organization. And you may be asking for some attachments at the end, perhaps. So, in the example of maybe a creative services team where somebody in marketing might be asking you to create a co-branded banner for social media, and they need to upload the other corporation's logo, and maybe they forgot to do that, or maybe they're looking for a certain kind of imagery that they'd like for you to use in your thought leadership, and they forget to upload that as well. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of bake into the system a little bit of automation to gently remind folks that things are missing. So with that, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Give me just one moment. Number 3. All right. So here you can see where it all begins. I just wanted to give some context with where this is all starting, similar to my little work up there. So we used a creative asset request form here. We're leveraging titles, asset type, a couple other description areas, and then down here at the bottom is an opportunity to upload a file, right? Well, we've already done the homework, and so we're just going to go straight to the item that has been submitted here by my creative director, Alan, right? We're looking for a landing page for a new product and help us create that. Mockups attached. Well, I can see right away that there actually are no mockups attached to this, and we're in a bit of a pickle. So what we can do is start to set up a little bit of a framework to help ourselves out a little bit. I have already established inside of this creative services team space a creative workflow, right? This is just really high level. When we receive a new request, obviously it's received. But in this situation here, we also have a missing information status, and we can leverage this as part of an automation so that once I see that there's something not quite right about this, I can change this status. This will take a look at who the author or who the person is that requested this, assign them the task, and give them a little bit of a note to let them know that we don't quite have all of the information that we need to move forward with this particular request. So let's go and build that automation and see how that works. And click out of there. You can see here on the left-hand side, I'm in the creative services team space. I am an admin of this space, which is a bit of a requirement that needs to be in place. There are 2 ways I can get to the automation. I can easily click on the gear icon here, but also if I'm a space admin, you'll notice here at the top, we have a quick link to take you directly to the automation space as well. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that now. Every click we can save, right? Just it makes my day. So here we can see we're back in the settings, and I'm already in the automations location. I already have an existing automation set up here, and that's okay. We're going to make a new one together. So down here at the bottom, we can see the add rule. And those lovely recommendations that Lisa was talking about earlier, you can see this is how we access them, right? All of those templates. You may have been wondering, well, where do I find all of them? Well, as soon as you select to add a new rule, the recommendations will come up here. There's the special section again for the AI specific ones. Again, we're going to be, taking a look around and seeing what are those repetitive actions that you're doing. Like, oh, I noticed every time that you change the status to completed, you're moving it to this location. And so maybe we can set that up more easily through the use of a template. But if this isn't your jam and it's not for us today, we can see in the upper right-hand corner, make a custom rule. And that's exactly what we'll do. Let's get some of the navigation in place first for folks who may not be that familiar with automations, and this is really kind of the first time you're seeing them. It is a kind of a trigger. What is a thing that's going to happen out there that's going to make a cause and effect? And the effect is going to be essentially the action that we want Wrike to take. So right at the beginning, when we see this, we have an area for a title. Now, we could go ahead and start to fill this out if we wanted to, but as we go through the configuration of this automation, robot is going to try and guess at what this should be. I only draw your attention to this right now because we're going to revisit this when we get to the back end of building out this automation, right? Just keep your eye up there. So first things first, what's the thing we're going to apply the rule to? Now, if you've ever worked with me as a client or seen any of my other videos, it's really important to understand the concept of projects and tasks inside of Wrike because that is what we're going to be asked for here in the dropdown. So essentially, at a very high level, Wrike's building blocks are tasks, actionable items that go inside of projects, things that we can measure long-term, activities. If you've been to some of our other trainings, you might also be familiar with custom item types. We won't be taking a deep dive into that in today's conversation, but do know that this is a great way to also focus in on a particular process or work stream that you have with your custom item types to really, really target your automations. So just do keep that in mind. Right. In this case, let me just make sure I check my notes real quick. So what we're going to do here is we're going to apply this to a task. Now, this is going to be any kind of task. And if you have, just as a side note, I'm sorry, I got myself distracted. If you have task custom item types as well, this is very specific. It's only going to apply to either a generic task or project or the custom item type. It is not a situation like we sometimes see in dashboards. We say, oh, I want to see all the projects, and it does pull custom item types for us. This is very, very specific and very, very targeted. So I want folks to be aware of that. So we're saying, hey, right, take a look around in this space. And anytime you see a task, we're going to have you do something. Well, maybe the space is too large and we really don't want this to happen like everywhere. Maybe we want to focus this in one specific location. And in this case, I'm going to focus it in the backlog box, or not the backlog box, but the backlog folder, because if more often than not, there might be a situation where I'm not ready for this to go on to my creative team until I fully vetted the project and made sure that we have all of the information points before we actually consider this ready and active to go. Now you might say, well, Kim, sometimes we miss information partway through the project. Well, that's fine too, right? You can add as many locations as you want here, but the point is to have that conversation either with your teams or internally to think about, do we want to really target where these automations are happening so it's not just like the wild, wild west where things are happening everywhere? All right, so that's that. We're going to say, right, I want you to take a look inside this space in these particular folders, and anytime you see a task, just keep an eye on it. What do we want to keep an eye on for in case something happens? That's our trigger. So when this happens, there are a lot of triggers that we have in here. Just do a little bit of a slow scroll down. Uh, there are so many different ways in clever ways that we've seen folks put different triggers together. But right now we're going to focus on one at the top, which is when the status changes. So remember, in my example, we want to say, we've received this, but we're missing some information. So we're going to change that status. So let's select our trigger. And we're given the option of have a lot of different workflows in here, Kim. Do you care if it's just anything that's active or anything that's completed, or do we want to be very specific? In this case, I do want to be very specific. So I'm going to come in and we can see here listed that we have workflows from the space specifically. And we also have workflows from the account level, right? So remember, account level workflows, that's available to anybody, anywhere, regardless of the space that you're in. And then only the workflows that are within the space will appear up here in the like kind of subheading. Okay. So I'm going to choose the creative workflow in this example, and we can see those options that we saw before listed here. And I'm going to select missing information. Pretty straightforward. Now, we'll talk about the conditional part here in, I think, one of our other automations. So I'm going to skip over this for now. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's not an applicable thing for us right now. And I'm going to skip over to the action. So just to really beat that drum, hey, Wrike, I want you to take a look inside of these folder locations at any tasks. And when one of them changes its status to missing information, I want you to do something. And that is the green section here. Again, just like the triggers, I'm going to scroll slowly here. There are a lot of different actions that we can take. Some of them are also really new and very exciting. Hint, hint, integration section. I'm looking at you. There's lots of really, really awesome things that we can do here. For this example, I'm just going to go all the way down to the very, very bottom, and I'm going to say add comment or at mention. This also happens to be one of my best practices that I recommend for folks when you're starting to build out automations is that, yes, there is evidence inside of the stream that the robots have come in and done things. But I also like to leave a little bit more of a specific paper trail here, especially if this automation is assigning something to somebody, or I'm moving its location or updating it in a certain way. I'm going to want to make sure that either my assignees or my followers, or maybe even like creative director group, or I don't know how that group operations group, right? We can use user groups here as well, are alerted to this change and that something has happened, right? We don't want folks to be just assuming that the thing got done. It's nice to just send that little push notification to let people know that a thing has happened. So in this case, I'm going to make sure that the assignee, well, I'm already the assignee in this example, but that's okay. And I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to use the author, because we know that the author is the person who submitted this request if they used the internal link. Let me copy my text so I don't have to type it. I know it's like Murphy's Law that you can't type right when people are watching you, so I'm going to copy paste. So here's the little bit of note that I'm going to send out, right? This request is missing a critical piece of information. Please review and provide comments or risk delaying your request deadline. We could see a little preview down here of what that's going to look like. Signees, author, this request is missing a critical piece of information. Please review and provide comments or risk delaying your request deadline. What's also really nice about automations is that we can stack actions up, right? So in this case, I might want to change assignee because right now it's just assigned to me, but I also want to add the author as well. So it's kind of a safety blanket, a double cover CYA, right? I'm assigning the item to them so that they have visibility. If there are any reports or dashboards or other tools that they're using to monitor work that they've either requested or are a part of, this is a great way to make sure that they're in the loop and have access to that information. I'm also going to give out a comment to this person as well as a follow-up. So depending on their email preferences or how they check their inbox, I have a backup for knowing that I've sent the notification and that they're definitely going to see it, right? So here I'm just really stocking up on the different ways that I can, notify somebody to let them know that this action has happened. All right. So as you can see, the robots come up here and has made its best guess as to what we should call this. And we couldn't hit create on this, and that's totally fine. But as you start to make more of these, you will notice that when they all have the same name, it gets tricky to tell them apart. So one of the things that I recommend is that you leverage some kind of prefixing situation. So if this is for my creative services team, maybe I have a prefix for all of the things that are for that team. Or maybe if this was for a certain project type, like a webinar, something like that. Whatever I'm getting really specific with, I might want to prefix something in the brackets. And additionally, and this is just one of those, like, you're just going to have to trust me on this, is that you're also going to need sequential numbering. Sometimes it will be, step one, we've received a new request and there's something missing. Step two is, yes, we've changed this from missing information to in progress. Let's move it to the active folder. And then step three might be, we've completed this through a status change. Now move it to a completed folder. So you'll want to start to number some of these because then you can sort by the numbers. And because we're humans and we think linearly, it's just going to help you out. And then the final little bit is I might take that prefix and I might put it in my comment stream as well. I'm speaking from experience here. Sometimes you make all of these really awesome rad automations and you send them out into the world and they fire off and unintended things happen. And you want to have a way to track that stuff down, right? And oftentimes, while you're still learning, the ability to have some kind of little clue as to which automation this was that triggered whatever the activity is, if you need to troubleshoot and go back and find that, this is one of the easiest ways to do that. It's just one of my best tips there. So we've got all of this set up. Final thing is that also you might want to update the title. So when the status changes, Very simple, right? And create. Now we've got an example of our first automation. Now we can see the naming convention here. We can also be able to sort by this too. So again, that sequential numbering is going to be handy there. We can also see if they're active or not and turn them on and off from here as well. So let's test this bad boy out real quick. Let's go back to our request and we're going to change the status. We're going to see the paper trail. Oh, it already was assigned to create to that one. Sorry, apologies, guys. So here we can see the paper trail. Assignees, Creative Director Allen, this request is missing a critical piece of information. We can see my little paper trail is in there. And what's nice is that just kind of as a follow-up, you could create another automation that says if the status hasn't changed in like 3 days, send another message to the assignee. Hey, Alan, it's been 3 days since you asked for us to do this, and we still haven't received the piece of missing information. And this is where you could escalate. I've seen some teams escalate. We are putting this request on hold until we hear more from you. If we don't hear from you in 3 weeks, we'll cancel the request. So there's also different ways you can escalate using this technique. I'm going to pause there, stop my screen share, see if there's any questions that have come through, anything we should be directly talking about, any nuances or thoughts you might have.
So far, there's been just one question from Emily. When a task is created via an email integration, is there a way to use an automation to change the tasks to a custom item type or blueprint? And essentially, Emily would like to be able to automatically assign custom values to these specific tasks instead of the generic task creation that occurs with this email integration. To be honest, I don't have the answer to this question at the moment. Yeah, because it's a little bit more kind of specific to do with email integration. So
And
I've
that's
noted.
too, we don't have an automation to quite convert an item type yet either.
Yeah. Yeah, so in that regards, in that case, it probably means that the answer is no. Um, but thank you for your question. And now I can see more comments in the chat box. Um, so comment number one, my projects are all the same but have different assignees for each project. Is there a way to add a notice to a supervisor who isn't listed as an assignee?
Yes. So in the example where it says there's the notify, there's the follower and all the checkboxes, and at the bottom you can say add a specific user or user group. The trick here is that you would have to make an automation for each person that you would want to have that be for, right? There's no like, if it's Lisa, then do Sam, and if it's Kim, then do Greg. Those different scenarios would mean that we'd have to write its own unique automation to address that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Question.
Thank you so much, Kim. We also have a question about request forms. How would I populate multiple tasks and subtasks with the description from a request form?
Ooh, that's good for another session, deep dive into request forms for
Mhm.
that there. And as far as automations are concerned, we don't quite have any, no, let me, before I speak out the side of my face, hold please. We might have the ability to update a description area. Let me just double check. Change, add comment, mention, change.
I don't think so, to be honest.
No, it's not there. Okay. It
Hmm.
must have been a fever dream that I had or my own personal wish list.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for checking, Kim. So if the project requester is not in Wrike, this is not possible, correct?
That
Yeah.
is correct. The way that you'd have to do the workaround for that is creating a custom field where either it's a user type custom field or a single select or a text. I don't think text field would work. And then we would leverage the orange box that I skipped over, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Leverage the condition and say, when the custom field of requester equals Kim, then do that. It does require a little bit of extra manual work up front for the person who's receiving or triaging those incoming requests, where you'd have to check the email and then quickly go up and update the custom field. But from there, the automation would then be able to flow.
Hmm. Thanks, Kim. And then the last question that we are going to take, I think that it is actually answered already. The author field, can it be a non-Wrike user? So yeah, that's kind of the same thing. So yeah, thank you so much, Kim. And I think that we are ready to so we just looked at the first use case of today, the missing information one. And now I think that we are ready to move on to the next one when an event date is coming up.
Yeah, so let's set the scene for this a little bit here. We'll be able to go through some of these automations a little bit more quickly now that we've laid the ground rules kind of for the first one, right? So in this situation, we've got events that are being submitted to the events team. We have a task that represents the day of the event itself. That way we can leverage it on a calendar and in some of our automations. And we also have some project planning that's going on around this that the event team is using Wrike to manage those kind of like get the venue, you know, get the catering and all of that stuff together. So part of this is that, well, maybe we want to remind the marketing team with a push notification that we're 3 weeks out from the event, and it's time to get some emails going out to our attendees and double check our KPIs. So that's what we're going to dive into here in our next automation. Number 3. All right. So I'm here in the events management team space. We've moved over a little bit here, and those who have an eagle eye, I hope you're taking notes because we are using my marketing demo environment of how I would set up an enterprise marketing team inside of Wrike. So here we are with the events management team. We can see at the space overview level, we've got some exactly what I talked about. We've got an event going on here. We've got some planning items. And then we also have the actual event itself as a task here with a due date set, not only in just the task, but also we're leveraging another custom field that is a date custom field that is the go live date. Not only is the events team using this, but we're using it throughout the demand gen and other locations as well. So this is what I would call a global custom field where we realize that more than one team can take advantage of this field in kind of nuanced ways, right? So for this case, go live date also equals the event date. So just a little bit of the context and what we have going on here. And it's not showing because I'm in the wrong level of the folder, but it's over here. As part of this, we also need to take a look at this custom field that I have set up. It's called calendar, yes or no. Obviously, my creative juices weren't flowing when I put this together, but the idea, the spirit behind this custom field is that if I check the box next to this, this is going to help me identify in my filters when I'm building out a calendar that yes, out of all of these things inside of this particular event project plan, I only want to surface when this event is happening so that when we're having a high level overview of what's going on, I don't see all of these other planning tasks. I only see the event date, right? So just so we're all clear on how the pieces are all sticking together to get the most value out of it. So let's go in and write the automation. So last time I used the click button up here. This time I'm going to use the other gear location that we have, which is right here. You can find that when you are selected at the space overview. Dun, 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 dun. All right, let's go right into applying this. We're going to do this to tasks, right? So you saw in the plan that all of our events are represented as tasks. We're going to apply this. Oh, just to keep it simple, we're going to just do it in the entire space. You know, we can get specific if we want to. And then we're going to go to our trigger and we're going to talk a little bit about the date trigger because I know there were some comments inside of the community article that we had here around dates. It is also my fever dream that we have some more control when it's like when it has passed like well, how long, because here we have the ability to do that for in the future. So Let me back up because I got a little bit ahead of myself here. First, we're going to say when the due date, right, will be within the next days or if the due date has passed, right? So that's the two parts of the path that we have to choose. We have a date in mind, a task is assigned with this date. Do we want to look at it for, oh my gosh, it's coming up, heads up, everybody? Or is it womp womp, dates passed, things are done, we're moving on, we've had things happen. So in this case, we're going to choose will be within the next. We have an amount of time, so this is pretty straightforward, days, hours, minutes. Just going to type in 21 days. That's going to give us approximately, right, like 3 to 4 weeks, depending on if you've got weekends set as a working day or not. And then the time zone, this is up to you on how you want to trigger that. If everybody is in one location, that makes this really, really easy. If you have a global organization that this is going down, um, that's going to have to be an internal conversation for how you might want to standardize that. Or is it okay to just choose the time zone that you're in? Right. Again, that's a discussion you'll have to have. So this is the setup, right? 3 weeks before the due date, I want something to happen. Now, we can choose the due date, we can choose the start date, and we can also choose the custom field date. So depending on how you've set things up inside the environment, you might be like, well, Kim, having the due date in another custom field really isn't going to work for us. Like, we're just going to use the due date. Sweet. Just use the due date. That's totally fine. But for other teams, they are going to want to use a custom field date as the trigger, and it's just this easy to go ahead and add that in if that is your preference. All right. Next, we're going to actually take a little look at the conditional box here. So this is our opportunity to say, do this, but only if this condition is met. This is an, make sure this is an or situation. It's not an and, right? Or an if, or sorry, not it is an if, it's not an and or situation. So in this case, we're going to come down and choose the custom field because I really want to make sure that it's only if this custom field has been selected. Perhaps events are coming in that we're still planning the dates on. We haven't really quite solidified that yet. Maybe I don't want them to show up on the calendar, and I also don't want to have any automations to alert people to do things to this event if it's not been like totally vetted that we've got this on the calendars in the book. So I want to put this little safety blanket in here to make sure that I accommodate for that little bit of nuance for our team. So in this case, we're going to tell Wrike to look inside the events management team space and the whole location. If there's a task out there where the go live date field is going to be out by 21 days, and only if the custom field has been checked for calendar, okay, then you can do something. Well, what's the thing that we're going to do? We're going to keep it really simple here. We're going to at mention. Let me go copy my text. So here we have the event is 21 days out. It's time to review target audience attendance KPIs and send round 2 of your emails. Again, we can choose attributes that are already built into the task or project. And then to one of the earlier questions, if I wanted to send this specifically to my events director, Dorothy, I can do that here as well. If she isn't necessarily an assignee or an author, but she wants to make sure that we're staying on top of things, we can do that here as well. All right, so everybody gets in loop. And then we follow best practices. We would put in some kind of naming convention. Just do this for fun when date is overdue. We're going to say approaching 21 days. Then we're going to comment, who is this, Dorothy? All right, so done our due diligence there. And we're going to say create, oh gosh, time zone. Sorry about that. There's no way for me to really test this with you guys right now. You have to trust me. I wish there was. But it is a good example of how we can leverage a condition and how we can also leverage a custom field along with that condition to really make sure that we are isolating something inside of a larger project plan with regards to not only our automations, but also our calendars that we might want to be setting up. So I'll go ahead and pause and stop screen share and see if there's any comments or questions that have come through.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim.
Yeah.
I love that use case for sure. So we have a couple of questions actually. One from Sherry. I have a specific use case where I want to change the status to an active past due status once it has been 2 days past the due date, not just past due midnight. We tried a workaround where we change the status to past due, then tried to get an automation rule to run if it hasn't changed in 1 day after. Isn't working.
Yeah. The thing that we have with automations right now is that we need a human to trigger something somewhere. Otherwise, we can get caught inside of a loop. And so I hear you deeply that again, it would be nice to be able to use where is it when it's has passed to be able to say, well, how long? It's been 2 days. It's been 3 weeks. Okay, well now go follow up with them. Um, that that is a wish list item, and this happens with approvals too, where it's like, oh, I wanted to automatically change the status and move it over to here, which should trigger another status that has an approval sitting on it, right? And the approval is not going to actually trigger when you do that. So yes, unfortunately, there is a bit of that logic that you're running up against there for the workaround. I wish it would work too, but that's essentially what's stopping you.
Thank you, Kim. And then we have another one. From my experience, automations involving approvals, we just talked about approvals, works only if the approval is manually triggered, not if it is an approval built into a workflow status change, correct? Is
Correct.
there a workaround, maybe,
Not at
that
this
you know of?
time. Oh my gosh, I feel this one deeply too. So yeah, some teams will have maybe one workflow for some operations, and they might want to midway, depending on a condition, send it over to an approval workflow. And that approval workflow might have nested inside of it an approval process that you want to have triggered, right? And so it'd be rad to have that all kind of daisy chain together. And unfortunately, because of that logic we just spoke about, where we really need a human to kind of trigger something somewhere, the only kind of workaround that we found is that when you get to that approval status, is that we trigger the at mention for somebody to go in and fiddle with whatever it is that you need to fiddle with to trigger the next automation that triggers the approval part. Not what
Mm,
you want to hear, but that's what we do.
thank you. And just the last question that I want to bring up is that, Kim, you are someone's favorite Wrike trainer and always do an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
All right, I think that we can now go to the next use case, which is let me check as well. Just a second. So now we are going to be talking about create a meeting sub item.
Yes. Do you want me to keep just sharing my screen here?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah, so the scenario that we're talking about here for this particular automation is that maybe we've got some projects that are certain project types or campaigns that are coming through, and it happens often enough where we need to just maybe throw in some meeting items as a sub item to an existing project plan, just kind of on the fly. Now, there are a lot of little nuances in this, and I'm sure they're going to come up in the question. So please throw down so at least we can get them answered verbally. But what we're going to do is write an automation that if somebody says that, oh gosh, let me get my thing right here. That if somebody says that, yes, in this project, we're going to want a meeting, and of course, it doesn't have to be the same custom field that we just reviewed. It's just easier for me in the demo account to keep things consistent. So you could have this be like meeting requested or whatever is applicable to you to keep folks in on the change management game. We're gonna check a custom field at the project level that indicates that we want to add something to this project plan. In this case, it's going to be a meeting, right? So let's go ahead and build out that automation. I'm going to access automations from the gear icon on the left here. Now you've seen 3 ways to get to the automations panel. Oh, let's see, I'm already trying to set myself up here. So let's go ahead and make this one for real. In this case, I'm going to apply this to just a regular old project. I was testing this earlier and I was getting into trouble, so I'm going to keep it simple. You could use a custom item type if you wanted to get very specific again. We're also going to just keep this in our entire space for the brevity and sake of time. We're going to come to the trigger. And in this case, I'm going to scroll down to the fields section. There is this other stuff up here, which is great. And we have something here, which is what we want. But because it says old, I want the one that has all the new bells and whistles. So I'm going to just go down to where it says fields. And here we can see custom field changes. Now, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. It was a trigger, not an action. So back to somebody else's question, we can have a trigger where the description changes, and then maybe you go and do something. All right, so back to this. When the custom field changes, well, what custom field, Kim? The one that I want is that calendar one or the meeting one, whichever is your preference. Wrike's going to say, well, okay, but there's values in here. You need to let me know which one because I need you to make a choice, right? So we can choose add condition here, or we can click over here to the and if. It's going to send you basically to the same place. Okay. So either or, whatever you like. Here's our and if again. Now the options that we have are a little bit more limited because we're dealing with a project type as opposed to a task type. So just keep that in mind. And then down here we have custom fields. We'll grab this and say as long as it's checked. Okay. So again, leveraging our conditions here to make sure we're targeting the right action. Then the thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about creating something new into this project. And there's a couple of nuances here that I want to discuss. We can create an entirely new thing inside the high level space because that's where we're looking. So this isn't going to put it inside of a folder location or anything like that. It's just going to be there. Or we can do a sub item within the triggered item. So that's the existing project plan, right? So if we are in a parent object and we just want to keep it all contained, that's what we're going to do here. Otherwise, if this is like, oh, just put it out there in the space, that's where that's going to go. Now there are things that we can choose. What is it that we want to create? And there's additional nuance here, right? We can create something just fresh, nice, nothing very, very complex, right? We've got tasks, projects, folders. We have our custom item types. We could also delete you and say, we want to create this item from a specific blueprint that you may have set up. So as you remember, custom item types, they're pretty generic, not a lot going on with them there as far as like, what are the nuances? Is this a stand-up meeting? Is this a kickoff meeting? Is this a quarterly review meeting, right? So based on that, we might have different blueprints set up that we want to take advantage of. Or we can duplicate something that already exists in the wild and apply anything that is there as well, right? Just gonna stay here because we don't need to see all of the other parts to have the next part of this conversation, which is, well, actually, no, I'm gonna go with this one and we'll just do a regular task, which is that we're going to ask you for name and description. Now, if you've got a blueprint, your blueprint's already gonna have a name, right? So that's going to be there. You're also going to have in some of these we're going to ask to do a prefix, right? And in all of these scenarios and all of these situations, whatever it is that you type here is going to be there as the name of the new item that gets created. Now, the part where it gets nuanced and tricky and people and I also get a little bit like not quite there yet is that yes, this means if you want to create a sub item for specific project plans because you have naming conventions that are specific for those campaigns or events, and you're like, well, I want to conditionally, if it's in this location, put this prefix. We don't quite have that yet. So whatever you're doing, this create sub item situation, and we're asking for names and all of this is going to be you're going to want to keep it super generic. And then once the item is created, go in and do the prefixing or the naming convention and do all the little noodling that you need to do to make sure that it fits into its new environment in a good way. Because we just don't have it yet. So here we're going to do create a sub item. And let's also just for funsies, because I know I've got the custom item type. Let's do that. Oh, I already have it. Sorry, I'm gonna do it here. And instead of task, I do already have a custom item type in here called meeting. Where is she? I'm gonna use that. All right. We can test this out. Make sure that other one, just in case, is off. Because, oh, wait, no, that one. All right, let's go and test this out. So I've got a project here. I'm going to check the box. Oh gosh, come on. Did I do it? Shit. All right, pardon my French. We're going to go double check what went wrong here. All right, in the project, in the entire space, when the field changes, we have the condition of it changing. Create a thing. This is the thing I want you to create. Gosh darn it. It's always fun when the demo goes sideways on you. So let's just double check what we've got going on. This is here. We're going to refresh our browser. All right. I've got the, and here just as a best practice for everybody, because as you can see, this stuff happens to the best of us. I've got another window open where I have my automation up so I can see exactly how it's configured. That way, when I come back into my environment, usually, and this goes when I'm setting up dashboards too, I'll have an object of my desire. In this case, it's this particular project, right? Oh, look, it did it. Ah, I was just too fast. I'll have an object of my desire so that I can come back and double check all of the configuration parameters to make sure I've got those right so that I can really dive into my automation and see where I went wrong. In this case, I was just really impatient and I didn't wait for the automation to actually do its thing. So apologies for that. Here you can see that the new item has been brought in with the same naming convention. We're using the custom item type. We can see that the item description has also been followed through. So if I'm following a naming convention, I would at this point, once it's come through, come in and triage this. Our next automation is about new items getting put inside of a project plan. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to pause here and see if we have any questions or thoughts about this particular example.
Thanks again, Kim. So we have a couple of questions. I propose that we move on to our last use case for today, and then we'll see if we have time for more questions because I can see that we only have 10 minutes left. So
Okay, sounds good.
thanks, Kim.
I anticipate that will be a good discussion. So I will get through this as quickly as I can. So our next use case is, as I mentioned, maybe you are a project manager, your account manager. There's some high level concept stuff going here. And so in this example, we're going to be an account manager where we are responsible for managing anything that comes through with our high level theme for this year, Apollo. And I want to make sure that if new requests are coming in or if people are coming in and just throwing down and making stuff and not using the proper process, maybe I want to be alerted that the stuff is coming in and just make sure that, everything's on board and we've got all the data points and that our reporting is good. So you can see I was testing this earlier, so let's do it again. So I am in the marketing team space. We're going to go up to our automations. Turn these off just in case. We'll open up a new one here. And in this case, oh, I forgot. Here, let me just go here and grab. I'm going to set myself up for success. I'm going to grab the permalink for this folder, right? That way, when I go and I write my automation, I can be really specific about what I want to do here. So we're going to apply this to tasks, and I want it to be in a specific location, which is that hyperlink. So here we've got, as the account manager for Apollo, maybe this is for a client, any other kind of campaign. I want to keep a very close eye on that. My trigger is going to be anytime a new item is created in there, right? This is going to give me a heads up. Things are happening. Maybe we've got a really big org. We're going to skip over the and if for now. What we're going to do is mention the specific person, campaign manager Gene. Heads up, you have a new item in your theme follow. Easy enough, right? all this is pretty straightforward here. So we're going to say create. And everybody's going to cross their fingers for me again. Oh, we got this right. Let's create a task. I didn't see the notification. Oh, I didn't notify me. I meant the Jeans did. So here we go. We have added a new task into theme Apollo, either manual, through blueprint, duplication, request form. It doesn't really matter because anything new that pops in here, somebody's going to get a heads up that this is here. Now, what this does mean is that if I want to be testing for new projects or new custom item types, I am going to have to write an automation for each variation of thing that might possibly come in here and need to be notified and have notifications sent out to whoever it is that is monitoring this at a very high level. So that could be another lovely use case for some of our account managers out there. So I tried to do that fast so we can open it to questions.
Great. Thank you so much. So, yeah, this is awesome. And it was definitely super useful for me. I hope for everyone else as well, even though, like, I do know a thing or two about Wrike's automations, but, like, those sessions with UCAM are just really eye-opening in a lot of cases. So we have a couple of questions in our Q&A box. So when creating a sub-item from a blueprint via automation, is there a way to reschedule the created item?
No, not at this time, fortunately. The only way that the rescheduling can kick in is through actually filling out the request form or through creating from blueprint or duplicating from the blueprint.
Mhm. Thanks.
Mhm.
And I don't believe so, but can request forms map to a checkbox field yet?
Like the comment field? I don't think so. No, no, not quite.
Is it currently not possible to format the description? Yeah, okay. I think that this is not about the automations at all, but is this function on the wish list or planned, headlines, bold or italic, color coding, format the description? If Lara, if you mean the like task description or project description, it is possible to use headlines and bold text as well. Definitely. And italic, I believe so too. Color coding. Yeah, all of these functions should be available in the item description fields. Let me see. I will try to quickly check that, of course. Um, Sorry, just a moment. Let me just open a task. Let's say this one. And I can okay, so yeah, like if I open a description, I can use bold text, I can use color coding or just colors for the background or the text. I can use italics, strike through as well. So these are possible. Let me
It's not through
see.
the automation. We don't have anything in automation land for that yet.
I don't think so. No, for specifically for automations, I don't think so. Okay, some of my automations include moving tasks from one location to another when a task is marked complete. But the one drawback is that it would be nice if I could apply rule to multiple item types. Instead, I have to create automations for each specific item type. Any future development that would include multiple item types.
Yeah, let's have a chat about that. I feel you on that one too. So let me share my screen and pull this back up. So this this might be like a record scratch when I tell you like what's about to go down here, and it might impact how you've got things configured. But it is 1000% true that if you're doing space level custom item types like we have here, there's no way to write an automation that covers more than one. But if you are an account level administrator and you have set up account level custom item types, you can come into automation back here. And what is really nice about this is that just like in dashboards, if I say, go find me everything that is a task or a project, this will also include custom item types. So if you have a lot of custom item types, which you know that I do in this account, and I want to write an automation that applies to every single one of them, I can come back here at the account level and use an account level automation, locate it to a specific space or location again, right? And say, if it's a project type or a task type, custom item type that is a task or project, please do the thing. Okay. So I know that may or may not throw a wrench in the fact that you like, Kim, I built everything at the space level and I don't have access as a custom type or as an administrator at the account level. And yes, that is a piece of product feedback that we will ask you to please find, upvote, and continue giving us that, please.
Amazing. So yeah, I apologize, Laura. Yeah, I understand now that what she meant was the automation part. So yeah, there it is not possible there yet with the automation, but yeah, we appreciate the feedback definitely, and all the feedback that we are hearing here is going to be sent to the appropriate team. So thank you for sharing. There's also a question on blueprints. Can you use a blueprint to populate tasks for a current project? I haven't been able to find a way. I do a new project from blueprint and then copy it to the original.
There's the add sub item or add item, right? And you can point that to a blueprint, but the tricky part is how do you trigger that automation to go down? Do you have to check on and off a custom field? Do you have to change a status? Is there an assignee? Like it's at that point we have to kind of think of a clever way to do the workaround to trigger it to throw in all of those. The other alternative is oh gosh, and this is not a very fun workaround either, but you could ask a question in like your request form for the permalink of the parent item and then have it set up so that each time you check a box, it adds another one of the things from your blueprint. And then once the request comes through, if you have that permalink in the question, it's easy to just copy that permalink and then add location at the top of the thing. It's a bit manual, but at least it like saves you from hunting and pecking and trying to find where this stuff should go.
Thanks.
Oh.
Okay, so is there a way to tell which automations are available at the space level as well?
Not at this time, other than being a space level admin and seeing what's in there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kim. I'm also typing an answer to a question of, is there a list of specific things account owners can do? So I just recommend starting with our help center. And if you have any additional questions, you're always welcome to reach out either in the community, in the how-to forum, or you can submit a ticket to our support. I'm afraid that we are like we have to stop here, but it was an amazing conversation. Thank you all so
Yes.
much for all of your questions and feedback. That's amazing, and we are super happy to be able to bring a session that was actually an idea from the community as well, and we'll try to continue that trend for sure. Kim, thank you so very much. It
Glad to be here.
was amazing. And yeah, we'll see you all very soon, I hope. And have a great day, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.